Sup, guys? It's Toad back with you as always every morning. Yesterday, 3-3. I think it should have been better than the 3-3. The 3-3 was still a win because it was the one loss was the money line underdog of the New York Rangers, which, by the way, I'm not even sure if that was a game that I really even should have lost. If you look at the game statistically, I mean, the Rangers outshot. Who were they playing? I don't even remember who they were playing, but they outshot whoever their opponent was ridiculously. They had like a 2 times shot edge, although, of course, some of that is because they're starting to throw up desperation shots because they're behind. But still, they had way more shots. They had way more hits. They were the way more physical team. I think they won the face-off battle, too. It's just, how do you lose a game 6-2 when it looks like that statistically? It doesn't make any sense to me. It was mostly just Shesterkin and I guess maybe the defense, I guess, just allowing way too many goals. I don't know. I didn't really see it, but I don't know how Shesterkin could be that bad coming out of a break. Like, you went into that break doing horribly. This was the handicap. Like, you got to get back to it. Shesterkin had that last game off as well, but maybe it was rust. I don't know what it was. He's not been very good at all this year. It's crazy. They actually took him out of the game. They put Quick back in. Just total disaster. Even though, again, statistically, it was not a 6-2 loss. College basketball was 1-1 yesterday. Memphis, easy win. And then George Mason, they just couldn't really get that margin, although it looked like they were eventually going to, because they eventually that lead started increasing. And I'm pretty sure they were actually up like 15 in the final 3 minutes or something. It looked like they could maybe, if they keep going that way, they'll just push it a little bit more. But I think at that point, they're just like, whatever, we're going to get out of here with a win. And the lead kind of just slipped back down a little bit. But it looked like they were almost about to get there. So they were only like 1.5 points away. When they're up 15, I needed them to win by 16 or whatever. I think I laid 16 on that instead of 16.5, whatever it was. So that one didn't get there. And then what else did I have? Oh, NBA. Yeah. I mean, Portland Trailblazers outright win. I mean, that helped me get the winning day yesterday as well. It was a small win yesterday, obviously, but Portland Trailblazers, nice win. I think it was basically wire to wire. They won outright. Nice win. And then the Sacramento Kings, I mean, give me a break with that, man. I mean, the Kings were in that game into the second half, and then everything just kind of completely imploded. And if you look at the statistics in that game, the Lakers shot, what did they shoot? Let me see right now. I don't have it up on my screen right now, but the Lakers had some ridiculous 3-point shooting percentage in this game. They shot 53.8 from 3-point range, and Sacramento was 27.5, and that was the entire difference in the game. Sacramento won the rebound battle. They won the turnover battle. They shot 51 from the field. Lakers shot 59.7 from the field, though. It's like, what can you even do, man? It was basically the entire tail of the game was the third quarter, where the Lakers just dominated the third quarter. I mean, that was pretty much it, or at least scoring-wise. But, I mean, those are outlier shooting percentages. So the final score was not really indicative of really what should have happened in that game. And I had huge line value in that game because I took Sacramento in the morning at +2. By the time the game went off, Sacramento was like a -2 favorite. So I crushed the closing line on that too. It's just very frustrating. And then we had just college bowl chaos yesterday where you never know what's going to happen in bowls, man. And I know the Pop-Tart Bowl was the one that gets all the attention because it's so weird, where they bring out the mascots, the anthropomorphic Pop-Tarts, and then the winning team gets to decide which one of them to toast and kill and eat, basically. And not only did that happen, and by the way, they chose the right one, cinnamon roll. That was the best of the 3 options there between that, wild berry, and hot fudge sundae. But it's just so bizarre. And then they had this ceremony during it where they resurrected the frosted strawberry that got toasted and killed last year. And they didn't bring frosted strawberry back whole. They brought back frosted strawberry all half eaten with one eye, and it's bleeding strawberry. It's insane, man. I mean, it's one of the creepiest things ever. It's totally ridiculous. And then you got I don't know, the mascots were taunting the refs. You got there were sprinkles on the sideline. But then as far as the game was concerned, I mean, very high scoring game. I was right about the over. I kind of wish that I actually played it because that was that was not even close. I mean, as far as the over, I mean, neither team showed up at all defensively. But the thing was, Cam Ward benched himself in the second half. I think he was basically like, all right, he went in, he wanted to get that like record or whatever it was for the number of touchdowns. I forget what the record was, or I think it was touchdowns, maybe passing yards, whatever it was. He got whatever that record was, and then he was just like, I'm not playing anymore. So if you had Miami in that game, that is a brutal way to lose that bet, man, because Miami probably would have won the game, I would think, if Cam Ward stayed in the game. They wound up losing by 1. I think probably on a 2-point conversion, or I don't know what it was, but I didn't see it. But man, I mean, that's a brutal way to lose if Cam Ward takes himself out. That's what happens in these bowl games when you get bowl games that are kind of meaningless and like anything can happen. Basically, your star player can just be like, I'm not going to play in the second half because I'm just going to go look forward to the NFL draft now. Oh man, it's wild, man. It is crazy. And then there was a huge fight in the NC State East Carolina game. East Carolina pulled off the upset. Actually, very surprising that happened in the Military Bowl. And there was a huge fight. And at one point, one of the refs got nailed. I think I don't know which side it was. One of the players on one side hit one of the players on the other side into the ref. And then the ref was like bleeding from the face. It was wild, man. It was a wild college football day yesterday with all those bowls. That was crazy, dude. And then, yeah, I don't know if there's anything to say about any of the other bowls. I'm happy that Colorado lost in embarrassing fashion. I like that. Nothing better could happen to Coach Prime, baby. I mean, it's a meaningless bowl game, but you go in and you insure your best players, Sanders' son there, and Travis Hunter, because they're going to be high draft picks. You insure them, you get insurance policies on them, and then you still lose the game brutally. I mean, it's pretty hilarious, to be honest. And Colorado's out there like celebrating and showboating when they're losing 33-7. Hilarious. But I did enjoy that. And then, yeah, I don't know what else to say. And then Louisiana got absolutely blasted, even though I didn't know if their quarterback, Woldbridge, was going to be back, and he was. He's like the best quarterback in the Sun Belt, and he came back to play for that bowl game. But I think there was just rust there, and I don't know what it was. That game just got way out of hand. They had no chance to cover. So, whatever. Bowl games are crazy, man. What can you say? And then I saw some footage of one of the bowl games from the previous day. I think Arkansas, Texas Tech, where there was like a scuffle on the ground, like a big pile. And one of Arkansas's players deliberately stepped on the ankle of one of Texas Tech's players, like really intentionally trying to injure him. And whoever that guy is, it was out there. Like people know who the guy is, because obviously you can see him do it. You know who he is. You know his jersey number or whatever. That guy should probably never play in football again. I mean, intentionally trying to break somebody's ankle is, yeah, I mean, I haven't really seen that too often. That's just crazy, man. Everything is crazy in college football. We don't have any college football today. Let's take a look at what we do have today. We do have NFL. I'll comment on the NFL real quick. And remember, I do have one NFL play here. I won. Oh, did I forget to mention I did win on the Chargers yesterday? That was my other win. Yesterday, I was right about the over in the Denver and Cincinnati game, and I was also right on the side Arizona covering. I mean, the Rams just didn't put up a whole lot of offense in that game. So I do have one more NFL play today, which is the Atlanta Falcons +4. I don't know where that line is at now. I haven't really been paying attention. It looks like it's down to 3.5. I would still probably like take the shot at 3.5 on that. You can go see my NFL video for the analysis on that, but I think it's a letdown spot for Washington. I think there's more need on the Falcons side, and they're getting points. Now, we do have some late situations here that I'm just going to mention really briefly going on in the NFL here, which are affecting fantasy lineups as well. And, of course, I'm trying to win third place in fantasy now after losing by 0.7 in the semifinals, and now I lose Alvin Kamara. I lose Tua, even though I wasn't going to start him. I'm probably going to start Goff, but we don't even know if Goff is going to play the full game tomorrow. Tua is not an option now because I'll talk about that in a second, but he's not going to play, which that basically means Waddle is probably like out of play as far as playing him. I have him on my team as well. I left Mims on my bench yesterday. He was the guy that I just picked up to fill my roster, and He went off yesterday, and I didn't have him in my lineup, so that's great as well. And now I'm going to lose Tony Pollard as well, because I was going to have him as like my flex. So he's not an option anymore either. Now, Tony Pollard, so he has the flu, and he's not traveling to play this game against the Jaguars. Basically, I think if the game mattered, he'd probably travel and suit up and play the game, but he's not going to play because he's ill and the game doesn't matter. But I mean, I don't know if that really affects the handicap. I said that I lean to the Titans, and I think I still do. I mean, the line hasn't really changed. I don't think Pollard not playing should really affect the line. This is a crazy low total to at 38. Some pretty pathetic offenses in this game. Jags down from 1 to pick them, and it looks like the money is still on the Titans side. 73% of the cash, 66% of the tickets. Still lean that way. I mean, Spears is the Titan. He's going to be the Titans' primary running back here. He's been in that role before. I don't think it's really going to be much of a downgrade for the Titans, to be honest. So that's the way that I look at that. My handicap really doesn't change on that one. And then the other game that's affected is Tua being out for the Dolphins. I mean, the Dolphins really seem like they just they're probably coming to terms with the fact they're probably not going to make the playoffs now. But that line, because of that, has now dropped from, it was at 6.5, and now it's down to 3. So 3.5 points shaved off the line because Tua is out. It's probably going to be Tyler Huntley, I would assume. He was the one who was in there when Tua was injured earlier in the season. He does have experience, but the Dolphins' offense was significantly worse with Huntley in there instead of Tua. So I don't know, man. So you do definitely have to downgrade the Dolphins, and it's going to be a matter of, I mean, the Browns also suck, and the Browns are still going with DTR as far as I can tell, which is really, really ridiculous. This total is down to 33. Oh my God. I don't think I've ever seen an NFL total that low. That is unbelievable. Oh man. I don't know what to think about this game at all. I mean, that's probably a little bit of an overreaction on that total. I mean, if that game goes under 33, holy crap. Man. I mean, I don't know what to think about that game. I mean, I kind of leaned towards taking the points of the Browns just because there was no line value on the Dolphins, and maybe I still do, but I mean, the Dolphins might be able to come out and play loose, and it's an injured player theory spot now for the Dolphins because Tua's out now. So the Dolphins might actually come and they might step up their game. They might actually be able to play loose because they don't control their own destiny. So even though they're still technically alive for the playoffs, they probably are just going to think we're not going to make the playoffs anymore. So they can just go out there and play loose. So I don't know how to handicap that game at all, really. Definitely a game I'm not going to have my money on. And I still like the Packers, obviously. My handicap still remains the same for these other games here. These other games I don't have a good feel on at all, though, really. So very hard to handicap a lot of these games this week. Very, very difficult. Let's get into some of these other sports here. I do have a college basketball play. There aren't any really huge games today. I mean, the whole thing is there are a lot of games today in college basketball, more than you usually see on a Sunday, but some of the big teams are playing, the big conference teams, but a lot of them are just playing like cupcakes, basically. So there are a lot of big lines, and it's those situations, even if it is like, oh, this team, oh my God, like Ohio State, they have like their Big Ten. They start Big Ten play next or whatever, but it's like, am I going to come in and try to play Indiana State like plus 20 something points? No, I'm probably not going to try to do that, because it's a situation where it's such a mismatch that even if a team is in a bad spot and they might be looking ahead, it doesn't even matter as much, right? Because like it's just so much of a talent differential that it's like, I don't want to do it. Belmont Drake is kind of an interesting game. Drake is laying I think it's down from 9 to 8. Let me see. Actually, I can pull it up here. I kind of was looking at the Belmont side here. Drake's down from 9 to 8. In situations like this, you want to look at how these teams went into the holiday break, because these teams mostly haven't played since then. And Drake, I mean, they went in hot. They haven't lost a game yet. They're 11-0. Although some of these wins maybe are not as impressive as we thought they were at the time. I mean, Miami is very down this year. Florida Atlantic's not as good as they were the last few years. Vandy, I mean, they're an okay team, maybe, I guess. Kansas State's definitely down this year too. So Drake really doesn't have any impressive wins on their resume, in my opinion. Belmont, I mean, I think they face a little bit more of a difficult schedule. I mean, their losses are all to solid teams at the very least, to Furman, Loyola Marymount, and Cal Irvine. I mean, those teams are not that bad. And they went into the break on a loss, losing to Cal Irvine. So that loss would be the thing that broke that momentum. But now you get a huge break after that. So I think Belmont might be the team that uses that break to like try to fix some things. And maybe they're getting a little bit too big a line on this one here. So I would slightly lean to Belmont in that game. I do think they can stay competitive in that game. That would be my opinion. The game I'm actually going to play, and I don't have the banners ready here, but I found a nice line on this one, is in the horizon. I'm going to play Wright State plus 2.5. That's my only college basketball play today. This is against Cleveland State. It's at Cleveland State, and I know it is double revenge for Cleveland State, but it could be a situation where maybe it's just a bad matchup type of situation here, because I know Wright State beat Cleveland State both times they played last year. But also, I think revenge is a little bit overrated. I mean, Cleveland State, I know that they've lost to some decent teams. I mean, Kansas State, Kent State isn't bad at all. Minnesota, Michigan. I mean, you can't blame them for losing those. They did get absolutely smacked by Michigan, so that really doesn't look that good. Kansas State isn't as good as they have been in the past, really. I mean, they're pretty down right now. And then Moorhead, Milwaukee. I mean, I don't know how good those teams really are. So some losses in there kind of questionable. Then Cleveland State kind of turned it back on and went on a roll going into the break. But I mean, they beat a bad Green Bay team. Oakland hasn't been playing that well, and they beat two non-Division I teams. So is that really that impressive? I don't think it is. And the last time they played, they put up 116 points against another non-Division I team. But still, I think you might be feeling a little bit high on yourself when you put up 116 points against anybody. And now they have that extended break. And I think that break might be a momentum stopper, man. And now they have to step back up in class and play a Wright State team who they haven't played a team as good as Wright State in quite a while. Like probably since the Kent State game, they haven't faced a team as good as Wright State. The odds makers are telling you Wright State is actually the better team because Cleveland State isn't even getting the full home court. They're actually down from 2 to 1.5, but I found a 2.5 a little while ago at I don't remember which book it was. FanDuel seems to be lagging a little bit behind though right now. So one of my other plays I'll mention was definitely FanDuel. But one of the books had 2.5. I don't even mind like taking +2, +1.5. I mean, my opinion is that I think Wright State will probably get the win in this game. The line is moving in that direction, like I said, down from 2 to 1.5 with juice. So not really a huge move there, but if you look at the other side of this, Wright State, I mean, you look at the records, it's like, well, wait a minute. Wright State has a slightly worse record. It's 7-7. Cleveland State is at 8-6. But yeah, I just told you that Cleveland State does have some wins against some bad teams, some cupcakes. So you can't really look at the rankings and determine which one of these teams is the better team. Ken Baum has Wright State as the better team, even though he does have them losing this game by 1. He has them ranked significantly higher, though, in his rankings. So kind of weird there. But Wright State, they're the way better offensive team in this game. And I mean, Cleveland State really struggles to score, but Cleveland State is better than Wright State on the defensive side. I know a lot of times I like to go with the better defense. In this case, I'm going with the better offense. Neither of these teams plays like at a really fast or slow tempo, and Cleveland State plays a bit slower than Wright State does, but I don't think it's that significant. So I don't think it's going to be that much of an edge one way or the other in this game. I just think that it sets up better for Wright State. And Wright State, the way they went into the break, they're going to really try to fix some things, man. They lost 2 games in a row. And I mean, Youngstown is a pretty good team, so can't blame them for that loss, really, although it was at home. So I think Wright State probably was. Well, Wright State was a favorite of 6.5. So Wright State actually lost 2 games where they were favorites of 6.5, 5.5. They were favored by 5.5 on the road at Eastern Michigan. So that's how they went into the break, losing 2 games where they were favored. Whereas Cleveland State, as I always say, the break can stop whatever type of momentum that you're on. So for Cleveland State, I think that break might stop their like hot momentum there where they were winning a bunch of games in a row. Whereas for Wright State, they lost 2 games in a row that they should have won as favorites. So I think that break is going to help them out and help them like fix whatever was going wrong in those. So I think that break comes at a way better time for Wright State. So I expect them to come out and have some things fixed and play better in this game. And Wright State, I mean, some of their losses, I mean, they lost to Kentucky. They beat Princeton. I mean, that's not a bad win there. They lost to Bradley, lost by 1 to South Florida. I mean, they were competitive in a lot of these losses too. by losing by 2 to Oakland, 3 to Bradley. I mean, none of these losses really aren't that bad. Toledo's not that bad either. So I actually like Wright State's resume better than Cleveland State's as well. Just how I look at it myself, even though KenPom doesn't really have a huge discrepancy in the strength of schedules here. To me, it looks like Wright State has played the more difficult schedule as well. So that's my college basketball play. Give me Wright State. What do we got going on? Jay Foot, what's up, man? Thanks for hanging out. We got nobody, no live viewers anymore here. I'm boring you guys. I apologize for that. Let's go to NHL here. NHL, we got a lot of games today, man. We got to look at, I mean, there were a lot of teams that played yesterday. I will say that I would probably have a slight lean to Tampa Bay in their game. I think both of these teams played yesterday, but Montreal, they beat Florida 4-0 yesterday, man. I mean, that's a pretty monumental win for a team like Montreal. Although what you do have to look at is that Montreal actually didn't even have Montembeault in net in that game. They came out of the break, and I figured they were probably going to play Montembeault again, because why wouldn't you? And they didn't do it. They had Dobes in net. I don't even know who that is, because Primo has kind of been their guy that's filled in for Montembeault. Unless Montembeault is hurt, I expect Montembeault is going to be back in net. He is the better goaltender. He's the primary goaltender for Montreal. So crazy they were able to shut out Florida with a backup goalie as well. But I do think that puts them in a letdown spot. And they did that yesterday. And now they have to go and play another pretty good team in Tampa Bay. Seems like a difficult spot to me for Montreal, even though it will be Montembeault in net, I assume. So they'll have their better goalie, and he is more rested. Tampa Bay just beat Florida 4-0 as well going into the holiday break. And then they came out of the holiday break, and this is the game I lost yesterday. I thought Tampa was going to be in a bad spot coming out of the break, having gone into the break like that, and that the Rangers had gone into the break so bad that they were going to fix some things. That didn't happen, and Tampa Bay blew out the Rangers. But it was a much easier win, and it was kind of a more expected win because Tampa was the favorite. So both teams on a back-to-back here, and Tampa not having to travel, even though Montreal is only traveling from South Florida up to Tampa Bay, but whatever. So I would look to Tampa Bay slightly in that game. Obviously not a play for me. Islanders-Pittsburgh is very weird because that was a game. I was actually right about that game yesterday. I don't even think I talked about it yesterday. Maybe I should have, because I was actually right about the game. The Islanders had gone into their break losing 7-1 to Buffalo. And that was a game that I won on. I won on Buffalo. I had Buffalo to break their monstrous loss streak there, and they actually did it, and did it in ridiculous fashion. So the Islanders were coming out of the had gone into the break losing as bad as you could possibly lose, basically. They came out of the break. They were in a good spot coming out of the break, because Pittsburgh actually went into that break having won their last game 7-3 or something. So both teams kind of had an opposite result going into the break. So the Islanders did make sense yesterday. You did have to lay like minus 140 on the Islanders. And the Islanders have been my nemesis, so I really didn't want to put my money on it. But I was right on my lean on the Islanders yesterday. Should have talked about it on my show, because I would have given out a winning lean at least on that. The Islanders did win. It was a good situation for them, and they won 6-3. But now they flip venues and play again today, and they go to Pittsburgh now. So it's a game where, you know, it's like the zigzag spot, right? Where you expect, oh, well, Pittsburgh played like ass yesterday. They'd gone into the break with a 7-3 win over the Flyers. Not very impressive when it's the Flyers, but still. Pittsburgh did not play well yesterday coming out of the break. So you expect, oh, well, Pittsburgh is going to be the team that has all the adjustments to make, right? It's the zigzag, so it makes sense to maybe look to the Pittsburgh side here. But then you look at the market. The market is all indicating on the Islanders again here, which is kind of insane to me. The Islanders have flipped from plus 107 as a dog to minus 119 as a favorite now. And 73% of the tickets on Pittsburgh, because the public's not really going to come in and lay a favorite price with the Islanders, man, on the road. Public doesn't like the Islanders, in my opinion. They like Pittsburgh. They like Sidney Crosby. They like the name, even though Pittsburgh isn't playing that well this year, and their big names are very, very old at this point. But only 54% of the cash on Pittsburgh, with 73% of the tickets on them. So Pittsburgh looks like a home public underdog in this game. Crazy to see, with the line moving towards the Islanders again. So I'm not going to buck what I see in the market there. I mean, those are pretty strong indicators. So I would actually lean more towards the market in that one, trumping what I think about the zigzag, because the zigzag alone isn't exactly strong. So That's just a little bit crazy. And then Ottawa, Minnesota is kind of a weird one too, where Ottawa, I liked the spot for Ottawa yesterday. I didn't play it, obviously, and they lost to Winnipeg 4-2. That's a tough loss, man. If you look at what happened in this game, Ottawa played pretty well. I mean, they outshot Winnipeg big time, and they weren't like losing the game for very long. So they actually outplayed Winnipeg in this game. They outface off them pretty significantly, 60.9% of faceoffs, out hit them as well. So Ottawa was really the all-around better team in this game, and they still lost. Ottawa was winning the game 2-0 in the second period. It was tied going into the third period, and then they just, I guess, kind of ran out of steam and lost. I don't know what's going on with Ottawa's goaltending situation, because Allmark has not been in net for a while now, so it seems like he's hurt. So that's a little bit of an issue for Ottawa as well. So I really don't like the spot that Ottawa is in here. I mean, they're on a back-to-back coming off that game where they could have beaten Winnipeg and they blew it. It looks like they probably don't have Allmark. I don't know. I haven't really looked into it, but it looks like he may be injured. I don't know. I don't know if it says on ESPN. It says he's active, so I don't know. I don't know why he hasn't played in the last few games, because he is Ottawa's primary goalie here. But turning around and having to play another good team like this right away off of that big effort doesn't look great to me for Ottawa, so I would slightly lean to the Wild in this one. And the Wild also played yesterday. They did have a big, or no, they didn't play yesterday, excuse me. So the Wild have one day off, but they did have a big game Friday, the day before that. They beat Dallas on the road in overtime. So I don't want to play the Wild either, because they are coming off a big win, but it does look like to me that Ottawa is in the worst of the two spots there. So slight lean to the Minnesota Wild, but you know they're going to be public, and they're not favored that heavily, down from -145 to -143, 92% of tickets, 100% of the cash. Obviously, these cash percentages, these percentages early on, you can't really glean that much from them. Although I think the Pittsburgh one is kind of shaping up more, so you can actually see what's really going on in that game. Some of these other games, you can't really figure anything out so far. Jay Forte, what's up, man? You're a Pens fan. I just gave you what I think is going to happen in that game. The market seems to be indicating very strongly on the Islanders again today. That is correct. I talked about Tua at the start of the show. Tua is not playing for the Dolphins today, so it could be an injured player spot where maybe the Dolphins will actually wind up winning the game and play well without Tua and like step it up for one game without him, possibly. Because I think at this point mentally, I think they really don't think they're going to make the playoffs. So I don't think they're going to be playing with like a lot of pressure on them. So they might be able to just come out and play. And the Cleveland Browns are a complete disaster with DTR in there as quarterback. So, I mean, and I don't think Cleveland's going to be very excited to play against a Tua-less Miami team either. Also, I will say about that Miami game, the weather isn't going to be that horrible either for a Miami team. But Miami now with Tua, the whole thing is, well, Tua can't play in the cold. He's a warm weather quarterback. Okay, well, now Tua's not playing. Tyler Huntley is in there, and he played on Baltimore for the majority of his career. So he's used to playing in colder weather, and it's not even really going to be that cold in that game, I don't think. I think it might be rainy, though, a little bit. It might be a cool, rainy day, but I think it's going to be like in the 40s. In Cleveland today, so it's not really going to be that cold. So the cold weather isn't really going to be a huge factor in that game. You always hated the Islanders. Is there a rivalry there between the Pens and the Islanders? I don't know. I'm a Bruins fan, and I've always been a Pens hater. Don't hate me for that, but the Pens have been one of the teams that I hate the most. Although the Bruins' biggest rival is the Montreal Canadiens, so they've been kind of the team that I hate the most. But the Canadiens have been so bad for so long now that it's like, you can't even really hate them at this point. Crosby was really good last year. Yeah, I mean, he's still a good player, obviously, but I mean, you're gonna lose some. Like you're way beyond your prime, and you're like in your 40s, man. That's just the way that it is. Even though in hockey, you do see these guys still be able to play. I mean, you get like some of these hockey players like Gordie Howe and whatever playing for the Hartford Whalers when he's like 53 years old or whatever. It's like Paul Newman and Slapshot. I mean, that is something that happens in hockey where these guys will just play into their 50s. Like Jaromir Jagr was playing for the Bruins when he was like 47 or something. I think Jagr is still playing professionally in the Czech Republic, and he's like almost 60 or something like that. I don't know, man. And I did have a coworker at my first company who was from the Czech Republic, and he knows Jaromir Jagr, and he's like played hockey with him before, just like, I don't know, just like pick up games and stuff like that. So that's kind of crazy as well. So that's a long-standing rivalry. Interesting. I didn't even know there was that much of a rivalry there between those two teams. It seems kind of crazy. It seems crazy to me the Islanders would have any big rivalry because they've always just been like the kind of like the retarded little brother to the Rangers, basically in New York. So I don't know, man. That seems a little bit wild to me. Not the Minnesota Wild. All right. And then Philadelphia, LA. I mean, I will talk about this one. This one's kind of interesting, man, because the Kings are down from minus 205 to minus 166. So we actually see pretty significant movement coming in on the Flyers, and I really don't disagree with it. 93% of the tickets, 97% of the cash. I don't think we can really take much away from those percentages there, but I actually agree with the Flyers in this game. This was almost a play for me. I have one hockey play. This is not it, but pretty close to being a play for me because look at what the Kings did yesterday, man. They went into the break not on the best note. They lost 2 games in a row, and they came out of the break, even though it was a return home spot. They came out of the break, and they beat Edmonton in overtime yesterday. Now they play this bad Flyers team where they just went on the road and beat the Flyers 7-3. So are they really going to pay attention to this Flyers team that they just absolutely wrecked in Philadelphia not that long ago? Probably not. Who do they have up next in a couple days? The New Jersey Devils, who've been playing some of the best hockey in the league, and then Tampa after that. So I think they're going to completely overlook Philadelphia here. So I like the Philadelphia side in this game. I might actually play this game, to be honest. Philadelphia, I mean, they played yesterday at Anaheim, but they're not traveling far either. I mean, Anaheim's 30 minutes up the road, basically, from LA. So not a huge travel, very quick bus trip, pretty much. They won easily 3-1 against a bad Ducks team. So I really don't think Philadelphia is in a very bad spot coming out of that. They don't have a big game up next with San Jose. So you know what? I don't know what we can get on this price here. I'm going to estimate that you can probably get somewhere around like we'll call it plus 140, but you can probably get a little bit better than that on this. I'm going to play the Philadelphia Flyers too. I'm trying to get a winning year here, man. And hopefully I'm not being, hopefully I'm still being selective enough. Let's just put it that way. I feel like I'm not being selective enough, but let's play the Philadelphia Flyers plus 140 or whatever the hell it's going to be. I don't know exactly what the price is going to be on that, but we will do that. And then I don't know what the hold on, let me see, because I do have a I got to see what my other plays are, because I do have I have one hockey play, and I got to see what it is, because I got to put the banner in here. Let me see. It is all right, I see it. It's one of the games I didn't talk about yet, obviously, and it is another underdog, but I will play the Philadelphia Flyers. So I am trying to win, obviously, on the year here, and I'm very, very close to that break even, man, because I've won a few days in a row now, I think. So we got a few days left, man. We have 3 days left, and I think if I win, well, it depends on how many games I'm playing these next 3 days, but there is a chance that I still have a winning year, man. So let's just hope that I win. I basically need to wind up like the equivalent of 3 bets, essentially, or maybe even 2 bets over the course of the next 3 days. So if that happens, I'll have a winning year still. So let's get it done, man. So Philadelphia Flyers will be a play there. That's it feels crazy. It feels like it's difficult to do. And my other play here is going to be on the Detroit Red Wings plus 122. This one almost even feels more difficult to do. This is a fade of the Washington Caps, down from minus 133 to minus 131, 88% of tickets, 99% of the cash. I don't know if that amount of cash is actually going to come in on Washington, but I think Washington is going to be public, and the reverse line movement, I think, is real on this one. I think there is probably going to be some money that's going to come in against a public Washington team here. I don't like the spot that Washington is in, which is why I'm fading them, obviously. This is another one of those spots where this is one of those spots where it's almost like the public bettors are going to do this like transitive thing, because both of these teams just played Toronto in their previous game or very recently and had completely different results. Washington beat Toronto yesterday coming out of the break, and they smacked them 5-2. So I was wrong about that. I actually thought Toronto would show up in that game and play a little bit better. I think, wait, is that what I thought yesterday? I don't even remember now. I don't remember what I thought in that game. I don't know. You can go back and watch my show yesterday. Maybe I don't remember what my lean was in that game, but a big win for Washington. Now they play Detroit on a back-to-back, and Detroit has really not been playing well. So Do you really think they're going to pay that much attention to Detroit, even though they're not traveling that far, just from Toronto to Detroit? And then who do they have up next? My Boston Bruins, which the Bruins, I mean, they've been playing better since they fired their coach. At least they're not great, but that's a bigger game, especially because the Bruins just destroyed Washington in the game before the Toronto game. They get quick revenge here against a Bruins team that beat them pretty badly going into the break. So I do think Washington's going to be focused on that upcoming game against the Bruins 2 days from now. So this, to me, looks like they're going to overlook Detroit, man. I mean, beating Toronto's a big win. Detroit's not playing well. They have a really ugly-looking record. No public bettor is going to want to come in and try to play the Red Wings here. Red Wings had yesterday off, and they just lost to Toronto. So both of these teams played Toronto in their previous games. Both were 5-2 results, but Detroit lost 5-2. Washington won 5-2. So the public's going to be like, oh, this is easy, right? Washington just smashed Toronto, who smashed Detroit. So obviously Washington will blow Detroit out, right? They're going to blow them out 10-0 or something like that, right? That's what's going to happen here? No, or 10-1. No, it doesn't work like that. Every game is an individual situation. Detroit, they're going to be focused on every game right now because they need a win. They at least had a break yesterday, and they're not even traveling. So even though Washington, I mean, travel from Toronto to Detroit isn't huge, but Detroit's not traveling at all, and they have the day off, whereas Washington played yesterday. So Detroit's got a rest advantage and a little bit of a travel advantage here. Give me the Detroit Red Wings plus 122. Oh, man. Those plays feel crazy, but that's what I'm doing. NBA will be the last sport that I talk about here. I mean, my Boston Celtics are playing. I mean, it looks like the market is kind of indicating on the Celtics again, with the public coming in on the Pacers again. Despite what we saw in the previous game, the Celtics just played the Pacers on the same floor in this matchup. I mean, the Celtics annihilated the Pacers, and I took advantage, and I won money on that because the Celtics were coming off 2 straight games where they lost as double-digit favorites. So I was like, this is a spot where the Celtics are going to show up, man. This game is not a spot where I think the Celtics are going to have an effort like that. I think this game is going to be, I mean, how could it not be closer? They won by 37 points or something. It's going to be closer than 37 points, man. I would bet on that if you gave me a good odds on it. Celtics are down from 12 to 11.5 here. Public looks like it's coming in on the Pacers still. I don't know how that's the case after what they saw in the previous game, because the public is so recency biased. 74% of tickets, 52% of the cash on the Pacers. A little bit wild, man. So I don't know what to think about that. So the market read is actually kind of on laying the points with the Celtics again. I mean, obviously the Celtics are the better team. Pacers are really, really poor defensively, but it's just a spot where I think you're not going to get as much of an effort out of the Celtics this time. They should win again, but am I going to bet on them to win by this margin again? No, I'm not going to do that. So stay away from that one. Grizzlies Thunder is the biggest game up on tap here. I actually have 2 NBA plays, by the way. And I was almost considering playing this game. I mean, I like the Thunder in this game. They're down from 8.5 to 7, too. So it looks like even though the line is dropped on them, we see the public coming in on the Grizzlies, man, because the public loves teams like the Grizzlies where they're scoring a ton of points. But, I mean, the Grizzlies, I mean, I think they're questionable defensively. They score a lot, but the Thunder are the better team. The odds makers are telling you this. And the Thunder are the better defensive team as well. So public thinking this is like a big matchup between 2 heavyweights here, and they're coming in to more of a degree on the Grizzlies. 80% of the tickets, only 57% of the cash, though. So the cash is more closer to evenly split, which tells me some of the bigger bets are probably on the Thunder. I don't disagree with that. Like I said, I do lean to the Thunder in this game. I mean, this is a game where both teams are probably going to show up. It's a big game for both teams. So in a case like that, you want to look to the team that's actually the better team, which is the Thunder. Memphis is coming off 2 games where they scored 155 points and 132 points. I mean, the public's going to look at that. I mean, go back even further. I mean, look at these scores they've been putting up. It's ridiculous. I mean, they put up over 110 points in how many games in a row now? It's crazy. It's like every single game they're doing this. But 155 is absolutely absurd. They put up 144 against the Warriors not that long ago. 155 was against Toronto, though. I mean, Toronto, the worst team in the NBA. And then they beat this very injury-riddled Pelicans team. It didn't even beat them by that much. So in a way, it's like they didn't even pay attention to New Orleans, and now they're going to be focused on Oklahoma City. Yes, I do think they're going to be focused, but the public is just going to be looking at, holy crap, this team is scoring a ton. That's the team that we want here, even though the Thunder are actually the better of these two teams, have the better record. The Thunder are on a roll as well, but of course they've reeled off some wins against some really bad teams. The Thunder did play yesterday, so they are on a back-to-back. So that's one hesitation I have. And they're on a third game in 4 days, all in different cities. So that's a little bit of a difficult spot for them. And they are returning home only from a quick 2-game road trip, though. So it wasn't a huge road trip. And you're not going to overlook Memphis, man. I mean, both teams are going to show up here. Even though Oklahoma City played yesterday, it was an easy win over the Charlotte Hornets. So I don't think they really put in like a full effort in that game. So the lean would still be to the Oklahoma City side in this one if both teams are able to show up and give a full effort in this one. And then Memphis, they're also playing a third game in 4 days in different cities, man. They're just not on a back-to-back. They just had yesterday off. They played back-to-back in the 2 days before that. So it's not like they have a huge rest advantage there, really. So lean to the Thunder in that one, but not a play for me. And then the games that actually have plays on, well, I'll talk about Heat Rockets too, I guess. The Rockets are up from 7 to 8.5. I'm pretty sure Jimmy Butler has been out and may still be out for this game. I'm not even sure. It looks like money is coming in on the Rockets, 83% of tickets, 62% of the cash on the Heat. So the public looks like they're coming in and thinking this is like a game with two good teams and maybe wanting to grab what they think is too many points with Houston, but I'm not sure that it is. This Houston team, I mean, they started rising last year with Udoka, however you want to pronounce it, former Celtic coach who's really turned this Houston team around real quick. And Houston has some really good young pieces, and they're really starting to be a force in the Western Conference, man. And Miami really has not been that good this year. And if they're still without Butler, I mean, that's going to be a problem as well. Miami did just lose their last game to the Atlanta Hawks, which was that a game I was on? No, that was not a game I was on. That was yesterday. So they played yesterday. So Miami is playing on a back-to-back. They're playing a third game in 4 days, all in different cities. So that's a difficult spot for Miami to be in as well, even though they did lose yesterday. I think Butler is still out. He's out until January 1st, so he's not playing in this game, which is why the line is as high as it is. So the public thinks the line is too high, but Jimmy Butler's not playing in this game. So that's why the Rockets are getting a little bit of extra couple of points there to account for Butler not being in. Rockets have been playing well, though. The Rockets are coming off a game where they played pretty tough against the Minnesota T-Wolves, though, and they do have Dallas and then Boston up next, the two finals teams from last year. So even though the market read is all over Houston here, I don't trust playing Houston in this spot, man, because it almost looks like a sandwich spot to me where they actually might overlook a Miami team without Butler that hasn't really been playing that well, coming off a tough game against Minnesota. They do have 1 day off, but they're playing a third game in 4 days as well. But it also was a game where they returned home. So sometimes when you return home and you don't play well, you bounce back in that next game, but it was a tough game. It wasn't a game where they got embarrassed or anything like that. I mean, losing a competitive game against Minnesota, not embarrassing at all. And they do have bigger games up next. So I'm not going to try to play the Houston Rockets here. I'm going to just do something way, way worse than that. And this is one of the ugliest plays that I've probably ever made in basketball. This is going to look horrible. Nobody's going to want to join me on this. The Toronto Raptors plus 1.5. I mean, come on, man. Like, look at this line. Who in their right mind is going to want to come in and play the Raptors here when the line is basically pick the winner in this game? So, yes, I'm saying I think the Raptors are going to win this game against the Atlanta Hawks. I mean, it's crazy. There is no way 72% of the tickets are on the Raptors in this game. That just cannot be possible. 81% of the cash on the Raptors. I don't know about that, but this is a spot play for me, and this looks like a complete trap line. Like, the books know nobody in their right mind. I'm not in my right mind, obviously. Nobody in their right mind is going to come in and play the Raptors when it's a pick the winner situation here. And the Hawks, I mean, the Hawks have been they've been the team that has beaten all of the best teams in basketball. They've beaten Cleveland twice. They've beaten the Celtics. They've pulled off all these huge wins this year, even though I do think Atlanta's still a mediocre team, and they're not very good defensively. So we at least have that going for us here. But look at this, the spot that they're in, man. This is the third game in 4 days, so that's not great. They got Denver up tomorrow, and then LeBron after that. So, and they're coming up beating Miami, even though it was without Butler. But they played three nice games in a row, pretty much. They've scored a ton of points in those 3 games, 117, 141, 120. I mean, some pretty big scoring efforts. And they do have Denver, like I said, up next, and then LeBron. So I think they could look right past Toronto here. Even though I always say when a team starts a road trip, it usually is a focus spot. But how focused can you possibly be on the worst team in the NBA when you have it surrounded by bigger games? Basically, any game is a bigger game than Toronto. And you played yesterday. You beat Miami yesterday. It's a back-to-back, and you have to go up from Atlanta. You have to go up through customs, play Toronto. I know Atlanta does have Trae Young back, so he is back. No real injury concerns. No huge injury concerns, really, in this game, I don't think. Toronto, this is actually a play on Toronto, too, man. I mean, hey, they've won 7 games. I mean, they've been able to pull off some wins this year. Toronto, I mean, they haven't won in a long time, obviously. They were actually 7-15 at one point. They haven't won since December 3rd, so we're really bucking that. Yes, I know they have Boston up next, but when you're mired in a loss streak like that, are you going to be unfocused for any game? I don't think you really are. And this is actually a winnable game for Toronto. And look what Toronto's coming off of, man. They just gave up 139 points to the Knicks. Then they went into the holiday break, came out of the break, and gave up 155 to Memphis. I mean, it doesn't get much worse than that. I mean, that's just embarrassing. You give up 155 points to anyone, I think you're going to be focused. You're going to be really embarrassed after that. And Toronto has 2 days off. I mean, I know they're returning home. So I'm actually fading a team that's starting a road trip against a team that's returning from a road trip. But it was a road trip that was really only a 1-game road trip. Because remember, they played the Knicks before going into the holiday break. Then I assume they went home for the holidays. Then they went out and they had that one road game right after Christmas against Memphis. Played a bad game. Now they're returning home. They have 2 days off. So this is going to be the game where maybe they get themselves back together and have more focus here in this game, because that wasn't really a road trip. I mean, they were just home before that. So I don't think they're really going to have a whole lot of stuff to do at home, because they probably were doing it during the holidays and whatever. So give me the Toronto Raptors, as ugly as that sounds. I mean, it looks like a trap line to me as well. So, and then Atlanta, like I said, I mean, they played yesterday. So Toronto has a 2-day rest edge as well, which I know that's being baked into the line a little bit though, but still, the books have to know the public is only going to be coming in on the Hawks here. So give me the Raptors. Oh man, that looks awful. But that's what I'm going to do. And then my final play is probably the only game I haven't talked about yet. Well, I didn't talk about Nets Magic. I don't really give a shit. That'll be the one bastard game that I don't talk about here. My other play here is San Antonio +7. And thanks, FanDuel, for giving me a +7 on this, because 7 is a key number in basketball, because it's the 3-score threshold. Or once a team gets ahead by 7, they're up by 3 score. Once a team gets behind, by 7 late in the game, that's a 3-possession deficit, and they stop intentionally fouling. So 7 is a little bit key in basketball. FanDuel is hanging the 7 still. If you want to take 6.5, I wouldn't stop you. It's mostly 6.5, so it looks like there probably are still some 7s out there. This is a fade of the T-Wolves. I know it looks a little bit difficult again to do this. Maybe not as ugly as the Toronto Raptors, but T-Wolves down from 7.5 to 6.5. 86% of tickets, only 54% of the cash. So it looks like we are getting a public T-Wolves team, and we're getting some reverse line movement against the T-Wolves. I mean, obviously the public's going to come in on the T-Wolves here. I mean, the T-Wolves have a star-studded lineup, even though their record hasn't been that great. I think it's still a little bit better than San Antonio's is. This is not a good spot for the T-Wolves, man. I mean, they went out, they had a road trip to Atlanta and they lost, and then they had their holiday. I'm assuming they celebrated the holidays, but they also had to play on Christmas, and that was a huge, huge game. Playoff revenge against the Dallas Mavericks, the team that eliminated them last year, on Christmas on national TV, on ESPN or whatever it was. Huge win. They got the win. I won on that game. I had Minnesota in that game, plus the points. And then after that, they did not suffer a letdown, and they went into Houston, and they took both games of that the Texas twosome there. They beat both of those teams. They're not playing the Texas Triangle, which they would be if this was at San Antonio. So for some reason, they're playing San Antonio after playing the other 2 Texas teams, but it's not in Texas. Completing the Texas Triangle is always difficult, either way you look at it, though. But coming off that Dallas game, they didn't suffer the letdown. They played well again and beat Houston, who's been a pretty good team. And now they return home off of that with only 1 day off. So I think maybe in this case, because they had, I don't know, man. I don't know if they were home for the holidays or not. So I don't know how the return home spot is going to function for them here. But even if it's not that much of a distraction, because I usually say I like to fade teams when they return home from a road trip, although usually it's mostly when they return home from a long road trip. They tend to get a little bit distracted by having to get back to family life. Maybe that won't be the case here, but they get San Antonio. And then who do they have up next? In 2 days, they got Oklahoma City and then Boston right after that. So they have two huge opponents coming up next. I think they could overlook the Spurs in this spot, man. And they just beat the Spurs on December 15th. They just went into San Antonio and beat the Spurs on their floor by double digits. So again, that's another indicator that I think they might not totally pay attention to the Spurs here, even though the Spurs are actually only half a game behind them. Spurs really, I mean, with Wemba there, I mean, they got a star can carry you to a lot of an extent, man, and he is kind of carrying them. They do have a few other pretty good players, though, and I mean, they have Chris Paul there to kind of round out their lineup, too. So this Spurs team, I mean, they're certainly not a pushover at this point. They can be competitive with the better teams in the NBA. And they are coming off a win over Brooklyn. They didn't play yesterday. They're continuing the road trip here. So they also played on Christmas. They lost up in New York. So they have been traveling a lot, I know. And then they're up in the Northeast corridor here, Philadelphia, New York, Brooklyn. Now I know they're going out to Minnesota. So it's a bit of a weird road trip here. But I think they want to split the road trip. And they're not going to be unfocused. And they're playing the T-Wolves, man. I mean, it's a good team, the T-Wolves, and San Antonio knows that they just lost at home to this team as well back on the 15th. So I think they're going to bring focus in this game. And I think that win over Brooklyn a couple of days ago, I think is a decent win just because what it will do is, even though Brooklyn is terrible, it will break their losing momentum, man. When you're in the middle of a loss streak, what you really want is you want to win against an easy team to beat, because then you get like a little bit of confidence back again, but you don't become overconfident, and you get to kind of carry that momentum out into the next game. And I think that is going to be the case with the Spurs here. So I like the Spurs, man. And if they consider this to all be part of the same road trip, they're going to want to try to split the road trip and even it up and go 2-2 and not have a losing road trip. That tends to be a little bit of an extra motivator as well. And maybe they also don't want to fall back to 500 either with their record there. So give me the Spurs plus the points in that one. And that is it. That's going to do it for me, man, for today. I got a lot of plays again. I'm on a lot. I got 6 more plays today. One more time. It is the Atlanta Falcons in the NFL +4. College basketball, Wright State +2.5. Hockey, Philadelphia Flyers +140. Detroit Red Wings +122. NBA, the ugliest play I've ever made, the Toronto Raptors +1.5. San Antonio +7. The Spurs. That's going to do it for me. I'm Tower Gang Toad. Thanks for hanging out, man. Jay Forte and Jay Foot, the 2 JFs. Thanks for hanging out, guys. Tower Gang Toad on Twitter. You can go follow me there. Follow the Tower Gang Podcast. Patreon.com/Tower Gang. You get access to pre-shows, post-shows, all that bonus content, man. And hang out with us in a Telegram. You get to submit to the mailbag. It's a whole lot of fun. We just had another fun episode. We did it on Friday. This time it is up in audio format on the Patreon, and I am going to upload the videos. It just takes a while, man. It's very annoying. Patreon still doesn't let you upload the videos directly. You have to do audio, and then you have to go over to Spotify and then upload the video as well. Very, very irritating. So I'm in charge of it. I'm getting around to it, man. That's my thing. I do a lot of the tech stuff, a lot of the uploads for the show. So that's going to do it for me once again. Tower Gang, baby. Let's get some wins, and let's somehow land on the winning side of this year, man. It's still possible. It could still happen. Trust in the process. Trust the handicapping. Trust the handicap. All the handicaps that I have. Trust my ailments to bring us back to the black, man. Peace out.